Hi there. In this Excel video, I'm going to quickly show you how you can add Visual Basic to an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm just going to quickly fire up Excel. I've got a bunch of Visual Basic code already in a PDF document that I'll attach to the description here. Notice I have a developer panel turned on. You can find that under File, Options, Customize Ribbon, and make sure you have developer turned on. So I'm going to quickly add functions and sub-procedures to a module. So I'm going to quickly go to the developer panel. One other thing, we need to save this as a macro-enabled spreadsheet. So I'll just quickly do that just to make sure it's done. Excel macro-enabled workbook. I'm just going to save it on my desktop. Depending on your local area network, you may need to save it in a safe location, but this is just my home computer, so everything will work. So I'm going to quickly choose Visual Basic. That gets us into our Visual Basic development environment. And I'm going to quickly insert a module. And I've got a bunch of code here. Again, I'll add this to the description or comments, however it works. So I'm just going to add that first piece. Just copying and pasting so you don't have to wait for me to type. So the function name is numSign. Let's try this out. So I'm just going to save this. You can either just close your development environment with the X, or you can click on your Excel here to get back to the workbook. I'll just go ahead and close it after I've saved it. And then I'm just going to add some numbers. I'll set them over here. And then functions are just called with the equal sign. So this one's called numSign. There it is there, it pops up once I add it. There you go. So that's how you add a function. Again, you add a function to a module using the Visual Basic IDE. I'll just quickly add a sub-procedure as well. So again, back to my Visual Basic. I can just add it after this one. So this is sub current date. So the way you run a sub-procedure, I'm going to quickly save that, close it, is you use the macros dialog. So there it is there. I'll just choose run. And it did everything I asked it to. Again, was insert the date in a particular format, bold it, and change the width of the column. So it did all of that stuff in one double click. This next one is is slightly different. I'm going to add a form that will I'll attach some scripts or some Visual Basic code to some of the elements in the form. So I'm going to go back to Visual Basic. This time I'm going to insert a form, user form. User form 1, I'm going to leave that name as is. In real life you might want to rename that. I'm going to change the caption though, so it just doesn't say user form to the end reader and user, that is. So if I click on that form, presently we don't see our properties. So if I click on properties, that'll show the properties for the element I have selected. So the element that has those little handles, which is this form in this case. So I'm just going to leave the name as is, and I'm going to change the caption to case changer. So that's the caption there. Again, you could change the name as well. I'm going to refer to this particular name in code, so I don't want to change that. And then we get this little toolbox that pops up. If that disappears, it's found under this button here, toggles off and on. when you have an element that allows you to add these elements, then that'll pop up if it's pressed in. So I'm going to quickly add a command button. So to find our command button, you can mouse over things. There we go. I'm going to add an OK button and a cancel button. Everyone's probably well aware of what those do. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm just going to click anywhere on this grid. With these little dots will snap whatever we add to sort of a grid there. So this is my OK button. So I'm just going to quickly change that name. You can just leave the name as is if you like. The more command buttons you add, let me just stretch this out so you can see what I'm talking about. They'll just add the number 1, 2. But I'm going to refer to a particular name in my code, so I'm just going to change the command button to be the same as my code, so I don't have to change the code later on. So that's going to be my OK button. Make sure you use that exact same name if you're using my code. And the caption, I'm going to make it OK. And I want that button to be selected if the user presses enter on their keyboard. So that will do that, the default. I could just double click on true, or double click on false or true to make it toggle. So that's true. I'm going to also add a cancel button in the same manner. So I'll click back on the user form, my little toolbox pops up. I can click on my command button, and I'll add my cancel button here. You can move it around by clicking and dragging on that shaded outline if you need to move it around. I'm just going to move it over here. And it should snap to alignment, so you don't have to align it, but I believe there are some tools to align. So I'm going to quickly click on that and change the properties of it. I'm going to change this to cancel button. Again, I'm going to be referring to that exact same name exactly as it's expressed here in code, so I'm going to make sure it's identical to what I have. And I'm going to make that caption cancel. Again, this is what the end user reads, so we have machine readable, human readable, if that means anything to anybody. And then cancel, we're going to make that true. Now I'm going to add 3 known as option buttons. What they are is we can only have one of them selected. It becomes a group. So again, if I click back on my form, I get my toolbox, and I want to put 3 of those. Right about there. Right about there. And right about there. I can move these around. And again, I'm going to have to change some things about these, because again, I'm going to be referring to these in code that I add to the OK button, by the way. One more over there. All right. And so I'm going to call this one option upper, the very first one. I'm using kind of a camel case here, and uppercase is the caption, and I'm going to make that the default. So I'll make the value true. That means the little black circle will appear in it, little black dot will appear inside of it. The option button 2, I'm going to call that option, I'll call that option lower, and the caption will be lowercase. I don't need to do anything else with that. And option upper, you guessed it. Oh, upper, option proper, you didn't guess it. And the caption is proper case. It's not true proper case, by the way. It just capitalizes the first letter of each word in a selection. So basically all of our work there is done. I'm just going to quickly add a button to the worksheet to make this thing here appear. To make it disappear, we'll have to use the X. Eventually the cancel will also unload it. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly save that. I don't know why my tool box keeps on jumping around. Just jumped around again. Save and close. And under the developer panel, we have the ability to insert some of the same elements that we saw on that user form 1. So if I click on that little drop down, I want to put in an ActiveX command button. And you can just click and drag to make it how big you want, or click just to make it a stock size. I'm just going to make it like that. And I'm going to change the properties to say change the case of selected text or something like that. I'm just going to call it case changer. So I'll go to properties, and I'm going to make that command button 1 is fine. Caption, I'm going to call that case changer. A little slow there. There we go. And to code that, I just notice the design mode is pressed in by default when we insert one of these things. You can turn it off to use it, but to work on it more, we need that pressed in gray like it is now. So when I double click on that, that'll add code to the workbook for this command button 1. So it's not adding it to a module, it's adding it to the actual button. So I'm going to double click on that, and the text, again, I'm just copying and pasting from my code that I'll provide. User form 1 show. So that's why I left the name as user form 1 show. So I'm going to save that and close my environment and turn off design mode, and then when I click on this, you'll see that my user form 1 pops up. Right now I have to use the red X to get rid of it, but eventually we'll add the code to the cancel button so it'll close it. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly add some code to the OK button. So I'm going to go back to my Visual Basic button. I'm just going to quickly add code to show you how the development environment will help you add the code if you're not certain about what to add. It gives you a bunch of suggestions. So I'm just going to double click on the user form. I'm going to double click on the OK button. That allows me to add the code to the OK button. I'm just going to add some code here. So this is the code from my document. So it's application. When I choose dot, it gives me a whole bunch of options for my application. So you can look up those and see what they do using Google Chrome or something like that. I'm going to type in screen updating, and it just pops right up. I could just hit tab on my keyboard to select that, and then equals, and then it gives me 2 options for that. I just hit tab to choose that one. We don't need any semicolons or brackets or anything like that in Visual Basic, similar to Python. You see that there's a comment in my code. I'm not going to bother with that comment. It doesn't do anything. It's just a good way to give yourself a note about what the code does. But I'm just going to type in if type name. Now this is a keyword. It'll capitalize automatically. It should be capitalized. We can type it all lowercase. The actual development environment will correct it for us. Not equal to range. So if that means if nothing's selected, then exit. So notice when I hit enter, everything became capitalized. I typed it all lowercase before. So that's some of the things that the development environment that is attached to Excel will do for you. So I'm just going to quickly add one more. Exit sub, and if. Now this one we do have to type exactly as we named it. For each cell, and selection. So again, I'm using all lowercase, but once I hit enter, you notice it all capitalizes. In real life, I just type it correctly, but I'm just letting you know that we don't have to in this environment. It fixes it for us. And there it is there, BB uppercase. So I'm just going to copy and paste that for all of them. So there's just 2 more there. So if option upper, if option lower, and I'll double check my option names. And proper. And then once it's finished, we want to unload the form. So I'm just going to save that and close it. Oh, that should be prior to sub. Oh, that should be before the end sub. And save and try it out. So I have some text here. Made it uppercase. Made it lowercase. Made it proper case. And I'm just going to quickly also add code to the cancel button. So I'm going to go back to my Visual Basic, double click on my user form 1, double click on my cancel button, and that will be unload user form 1. Save, close, and try it again. So that was adding functions, sub-procedures, as well as a form to a spreadsheet. I'm just going to quickly add the remaining of code just so that you can ensure that it actually works. So I've got some stuff for an exercise for my actual class here. So we've got a function sayIt. So I'm going to call that from a function. So I'll go to Visual Basic. I'll add that to the module. You can add as many of these to the modules. You can add as many modules as you like if you want as well, but we can add them all to one as well. So this is going to be called function sayIt. I'm going to quickly go back to my spreadsheet. I'm going to say if sum of the A column, so whatever's in the A column, gets to be larger than 1,000, then we want the function sayIt. Oh, we need an equal sign, that's why it's not working. Equals sayIt, there it is there. Whatever text I'm going to have in B1, and then finish off the algorithm. So I'm going to say you have reached your goal, which is 1,000, right? Not yet.
You have reached your goal.
There you go. Depending on the computer, you'll have a female or a male voice. This next one, I'm going to quickly create. The procedure that I'm going to ask is going to actually go from the current sheet into sheet 2. So I'm just going to add a sheet 2 and a sheet 3, and I'll put the data in sheet 3. So it'll copy from sheet 3 to sheet 2. So it's first quarter sale.
You have reached your goal.
Oh. And I'll quickly format it. See if the formatting goes with it. I'm not sure if it does. All right, so I have some data in sheet 3. I'm going to quickly create a sub procedure that'll copy all of this data to sheet 2. So whatever the data is in A1 that extends outwards in the present sheet will go to sheet 2. So I'm going to quickly go back to my developer, Visual Basic, and add my code. Again, I'm just copying and pasting directly from the PDF. It's called copy current region. I'll save and call it. Sheet 2 now has that same data. Works perfectly. The rest are only a couple of lines, so you shouldn't have any problems with that. But that's basically, again, adding functions, sub-procedures, as well as user forms and Visual Basic to an Excel spreadsheet. Thanks so much for watching.